Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Your Career Day. Our goal is to focus on careers that you may or may not have heard about. Today, our focus is on medical illustration, and we are joined by someone in the industry who's worked in the industry for several years. His name is Mr. Danny O'Reilly. Welcome, Danny, to our show. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Our host tonight is H. Take it away, H.
Hey, Danny. Welcome. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and, share information about your career with those people who might not be in the know or have knowledge of the fact that this career even exists. So I want to say that from the get-go. I do have some questions I want to ask you in this conversation. And, I'm just excited to hear what you're talking about. So let me ask you, what exactly is a medical illustrator for those people who don't know?
Well, a medical illustrator is someone who takes the complexity of life sciences, biotech, patient education, medicine in general, and distills it, makes it clear for other people to understand. So it's basically taking something that's really, really complex. And biology by nature is really, really messy. And there's some things in biology that we can't even see. We can't even understand or see. We can understand, but we can't really see what's going on inside the nucleus of a cell. So what I do is I take information from scientists, from doctors, from pharmacologists, people that create vaccines and drugs, and all different people in the healthcare industry that have a story that has a narrative that needs to be told. And they come to me, and I come up with really creative ideas and ways to tell their story. So traditionally, it was always done. They used the term medical illustration because oftentimes those are the tools at the time that we had. We could draw, we could paint, we could do all kinds of different etchings. So if you all the way back into the days of Leonardo da Vinci and Vesalius and all these people that were these anatomists, hundreds of years ago. Now we have the most advanced technologies available in the history of mankind that we're using right now, even the AI-enabled tools. So we're taking these really, really complex things that people need to explain to other people that have to do with biology, have to do with medicine, and explain so that people can understand them.
Yeah, it sounds really, really complex, and it has all these other aspects associated with it. But then it also seems very natural, kind of down to earth. But I guess what I'm curious about is, and I'm sure other people are curious about too, is what made you decide to go into this profession?
Well, I like a lot of people wasn't even aware of the profession. I actually went to art school for painting and drawing and wanted to be a painter and a professional artist. But I also had a little bit of an interest in, and I've always loved anatomy. Medicine was always cool. So kind of being able to combine the two together. And the best phrase I always heard is science is discipline, passion, and art is passion, discipline. So I kind of found a career. I fell into a career that kind of combined those two as a nexus, as the meeting point where those two fields kind of came together. And I've been there for 20 years, well, actually almost 25 years now. So.
Well, I was going to ask you a question since you bring up art and medicine, and you talk about the nexus that occurs with those two. But I'm just curious, what are the similarities that you find in art and in the things that you depict in that art?
Well, the design really, really an astute attention to detail, understanding complexity, passion for sure. Both require a tremendous amount of discipline. They really kind of feed off of one another, and then partly what I do has to be based on science because it's for people that the science has to be right. But when it comes to explaining that and making it more appealing and more memorable to people to see it, that kind of comes the art element of it, to where it's all the pharmaceutical companies that I'm working with, it was like, show us something we haven't seen yet. Show something kind of that let's say disruptive, but it kind of stands out. We put this on social media, we put this on a website. We want people to see this. We want people to remember it. We want people to really be engaged with it. I mean, I'm not saying that the science by itself wouldn't do that, but when something's really flashy and it's really sophisticated, and you understand the aesthetics behind what is appealing to us, to people, it really kind of informs that message even more. So they really feed off of each other. That's a great question.
No. Well, the more you speak, the more it makes me think of the profession itself. And it was really interesting that you brought in the social media aspect of it when you were detailing what people who use your services or desire your services or want to create things from your services want, and how that is incorporated into social media, which is pretty interesting. I don't think most people would think about that. They would just think about, hey, it's art and it's medical, but the combining of the two, the amalgamation of those those things that people think are so disparate is just amazing to me. I'm curious, what did you have to do to get a degree in this particular field?
Well, at the time, and this goes back 20 years ago, there were 5 accredited programs by the American Association of Medical Illustrators. So there was one in Johns Hopkins University, there was one in Toronto, there's one in Augusta, or actually the Georgia program. Michigan, and then I'm trying to think if I got all of them. But there are programs that specifically taught the life sciences. So we went to medical school, and on top of that, with the medical school part of it, they taught us all the illustration techniques, all the software, and more importantly, a lot of people kind of lose sight of when it comes to higher education. They teach you how to think critically. And I mean, I'm not saying that there's the problem solving that comes from using a piece of software isn't irrelevant or isn't necessary, but I majority of the software that I learned, or the way I learned software now, is by YouTube videos from people that are half my age doing. And so what I'm doing is it's the education I received at Michigan, University of Michigan Medical School, and the professors and the staff that were there really said to how to think, what's the best solution, what's the, not necessarily reaching for one particular tool, but what's the best way to communicate this idea. So that really and really understanding the service of it, understanding that, what I'm essentially doing as a customer service, and to be able to listen to the needs of a client, and how to best tell their story. And it makes, and again, the anatomy part of it too, and the life sciences, that I understand enough of this life science and the verbiage and the language that's used in medicine to be able to communicate with people on Zoom meetings now. So it's a constant learning of software, and again, the technology continually changes. It's immensely, what they're doing now is just incredible. It's science fiction stuff. So it's great that I'd love to be privy to it. I love to hear all the new technologies coming out, particularly when it comes to what AI is doing, and they're actually creating proteins that don't even exist now. So it's crazy stuff. So it's fun.
Well, with that in mind, how do you think your job will evolve as a result of all those advances in technology and AI and things of that nature?
That's a great question. I could I could talk about AI for days. As long as the AI, well, I guess I'm looking at, nobody kind of knows where these new technologies will take us. I don't think we ever do when we're on the front end of it. I know when it comes to, the last big bubble they went through was a .com bubble. And I think when it comes to AI and these new emerging technologies that people are so concerned about right now, we're kind of in the PetSmart.com era of that. There's a lot of stuff that it's not right anymore. But what I am is, and this is something I think that, of course, I'm Gen X, but then we've got Gen Z and Gen Y and younger people than myself, half my age, that I think are better prepared for these emerging and jumps in technology, because we're constantly bombarded with new ways to consume data, new ways to consume information, new apps, new techniques, new software. So there are always kind of these things kind of being thrown at you. But when it comes to a lot of people say, this existential threat of AI is that does it make me as a creative human being that can think critically irrelevant? And I don't think that we're quite there. But what I do think is that I am still making things for people. I'm still making things for other people, human beings, to understand, and that requires someone to validate those. And the other interesting thing when it comes to biology and these new emerging technologies is that it's a really, really complex thing, and biology is really, really messy. It can. I think these new emerging technologies are better at understanding and solving, engineering problems and things when it comes to language-based models. But when it comes to really, really messy and really, really abstract things, like what goes on inside of a nucleus of a cell, I think it's going to change. But and again, it's one of the things I'm definitely aware of, and I'm always the way they say with Darwin says it's not the strongest, the smartest, or the strongest of a most intelligent of a species is the most adaptive. So I'm constantly changing and constantly open. I'm actually was using a piece of software for 20 years, and now in the last 6 months, I've completely switched and using a different piece. So it's always constantly evolving and changing. So I'm just kind of taking it as it comes with everybody else, I think.
Well, that's, there's something to think about in the future. I think, as you mentioned, people are afraid of AI. They're afraid of the things that they don't know, as opposed to being more adaptive and understanding what it is and how to incorporate it. Because we've done that throughout the centuries.
And we'll always do that.
Yeah. So I wanted to know, are there any body parts that are harder to draw than others?
No, because I guess it depends on the mindset of the person looking at it. I've always looked at things, and maybe that's just me, or particular to the way I'm kind of wired, is you look at things in an abstract relationship. So it's you're trying to give you a simple answer here. I guess I look at it all the same. Let me think. And I hate to say it because we're talking about anatomy, and anatomy is kind of one of the books that we've kind of closed, 100 years ago, not maybe 100 years ago, but 50 years ago or so. The things that I'm struggling with is how to represent hormones and cells and really, really abstract kind of concepts, especially when it comes to epigenetics. I think. Well, heart is always pretty challenging, and the other one would be a lot of things that people don't necessarily get right when it comes to body parts is the orientation and the pelt of the pelvis. So actually, you see a skeleton hanging. The pelvis actually has a kind of an anterior tilt to it, and in reality, it isn't. If you think about the pelvis, it actually is kind of like a structure that kind of holds all your internal organs. So it's that kind of thing. I mean, and it comes back to being. It has to be right. That's something that we in the group I work with and everybody else, it has to be right. There's there is a right or wrong. So I guess I was always told when medical school is, and the difference between medical school and law school is in medical school we don't care what you think. It's right or it's our way. This is our way. If you want to argue a point, you need to go to law school.
So let me get clarification on that. So I know you're drawing hormones and all those things like that, but do you ever draw like diseases and things like that?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sorry.
One of the most interesting things in this past summer, so we had when I mentioned earlier that there are 5 programs that are accredited by the American Association of Medical Illustrators. They have a conference every year, and this year, of course, the year prior, the conference wasn't. A lot of conferences were canceled because of COVID. So when we kind of went back to do the conference, of course, it was in Las Vegas, which was a lot of fun. But we went there, and there was a special presentation and a prize awarded to the laboratory and the 2 individuals that had the first depiction, and everybody's seen this because all over the news, of COVID. So for the first time, this disruptive thing that was happening, to all of us were involved in this. We actually got to look at what it was. So it was that, and everybody's seen it. You'll recognize if I showed you a picture of it, like, that was the first thing I saw on, MSN or whatever news outlet you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave us, all of us, a face to the name. So that's something that's really, if you look at it under a microscope of what the virus actually kind of looks like, I mean, it's messy and it's complex, but to have someone take all that and say, this is the crown structure of the spike, this is the reason, these are where all of the mutations are kind of occurring and happening, and this is why this variant is easier to catch than this variant. So being able to kind of to show everybody and not to put pictures to it, and again, it's a better understanding of it. And one of the best quotes I ever heard was from Einstein. He said, solving a problem isn't difficult, visualizing one is. So to be able to visualize this thing that's basically, everything in my life had to be canceled. My family trips, everything was canceled. To kind of have a look and kind of understand, okay, this is what we're dealing with. So that was, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that kind of gives you some idea of it is a pretty abstract kind of thing. So there's not like something you can really objectively that you can kind of draw. It has to take data, compile that, put that together, and to give us an image of what it is.
Well, I was going to ask you a question that addressed whether there were any things that you are presented with that are too hard to draw. But I know you said you moved away from anatomy, but I was just wondering, like, if you depicted, like, say, diseases or viruses in, infecting a body, are there any things that you feel like, wow, this is really graphic, or this is really intense, or will be intense for the audience that sees this?
Yes. I can't give a specific example. What I can do is I can speak to the very reason that what you've just said is the reason why I have a job. There is a level of stylization that goes into this. And again, we're always asking, who is the audience? And, and more importantly, how much time do they have to take this in? How much time do they have to digest this? If we're talking about, TikTok where we've got 15 seconds to describe something. So we really have to be really careful and really concise. And that's the hand of the artist. The artist comes in and can soften and can, and more importantly, clarify. You basically distill. So take this really messy, gory thing, subtract all the elements away, the most important things that we need to understand, and just show those things. And more importantly, make it beautiful. People really like beautiful things. They like shiny things. They like things that are impactful, that they haven't seen, that are novel and are new. So every time that a client comes to us, we have that opportunity. And oftentimes they'll come to us with an idea of what they want. And the other quote I've ever read was by Saatchi & Saatchi, the huge ad conglomerate. They said, never give a client what they want, because someone else will give them something they never could have imagined. So when they come to us, you're kind of constantly thinking, and I like that challenge of it too, is to think, how can I make it clear? How can I make it concise? How can I make it accurate? And how can I make it beautiful?
But I do want to know, what would people be surprised to know about your job?
Man, it's such a fringe thing, and it's so esoteric, and it is such kind of a cottage industry kind of thing. I guess would be surprised that you have to explain to someone that this is a profession, this is a field, this is a vocation. I feel more of a vocation than a job. I mean, I'm a creative, I'm an artist. I'm a dilettante when it comes to the sciences, but I'm still as invested in the sciences as the next person. Well, I guess the other part would be is the need that it is, because one of the things we come back to AI, and again, the concerns I think a lot of people are having, and this ties in, is that the AI will replace human beings. What AI will effectively probably do, it will create the problems that AI solves will create more problems, or it will solve the problems that it creates. So what I'm finding now is, and this goes back to COVID, is people were just blown away when they developed the vaccine in the record time that they did. Well, little did they know at the time is they were using supercomputers and AI and machine learning to create this vaccine, this monoclonal antibody for this. So, and that went from taking 10 years to maybe 10 months to 10 weeks to 10 days. And that's all being accelerated by these emerging technologies. What that's doing is there all these drug manufacturers and my clients, they're all rolling these drugs out faster and faster and faster. So what I need to do is be able to harness the technology and to rein it in order to keep up with the demand. So it's basically, there's no, I don't know if there's a net gain involved. It's like they're producing more drugs, I'm producing more work, and then the software will basically rise all our ships together kind of thing.
So can you tell me one self-satisfying aspect of your job? One that pertains to satisfying something in you, whatever that abstract thing is.
Oh man, great question. I like that it satisfies me creatively. I think every artist and every creative, when they're making something, they're not sure if it's, when they're in the process of making it, there's this, I know I've seen all these memes and stuff like that, and they talk about the creative process where it's a roller coaster. But I kind of love the highs and the lows of it, and the work that goes involved in that, and the energy expended in producing that. On top of that, the software kind of always kind of keeps me just out of my comfort zone, and so does the information and the data that I'm using, because I'm learning all these things at the same time. So it's really kind of spreading me kind of thing. So there's a tremendous amount of satisfaction, I guess, when I deliver that. I'm a customer servant. So when I deliver that to a client or to that's paying me to solve this problem for them, and they love it, and they can't imagine how I did this or how we created this, or the team that I work with that did put this together. There's a tremendous amount of satisfaction that goes beyond any kind of compensation that you could get, salary wise. Because I'll tell you what, there's a lot easier ways to make money.
Oh, believe me, I know.
Yeah, there's way easier ways to make money. You wouldn't be doing this if there's a lot of easier ways to make money. And again, there was a couple of times when said, like, why don't you go into orthopedic sales? It makes so much more money, or orthopedic sales rep, or medical sales rep. And realizing that they weren't interested in my ability to attention to detail when it comes to beautiful abstract things or satisfying myself kind of creatively. So I get so much satisfaction out of the creative element, and actually bring something together and bringing all these disparate parts that stress me out so much. But at the very end, when they all come together and everything is just this beautiful final deliverable to a client, it's so satisfying. And on top of that, I kind of reward myself with, well, I know a little bit about molecular cell biology now. Or I guess the other part is being privy to what I'm really kind of, I don't know, kind of taking a satisfaction in that people are, asking me to sign non-disclosure agreements. It basically says, what we show you, you can't talk about. To kind of understand, and not to say that, I want to be ahead of everybody else, but to kind of see where we're going as people when it comes to, the experience of life and how biotechnology kind of intertwines and all of that. And it's just a really, really exciting time and place to do what we're doing. And again, everybody kind of talks about these new emerging technologies that we're so concerned about, but the one guarantee that we'll have from that is in the future, who knows, but in the next 20 years, to be a creative living in this time and place with the technology that we have and the software and the machine learning and the AI, some of the most amazing artwork and the history of human beings will be created in the next 20 years. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one last question. Who would you recommend to pursue a career in this field? Like, what type of a person do you feel would be adequate to fulfill the things that you do?
Someone an individual that has a passion for art and science, that has a passion for beauty, aesthetics, is highly driven, is highly motivated, it's a lifelong learner that wants to continually learn new things, because you're going to be learning so much about the ways to create, the work you need to create, but also the why, the narratives, the stories that you're going to hear. You're going to need to be self-motivated. Again, I can't speak enough to passion and discipline. To be disciplined to pursue and to be outside your comfort zone, because you're there most of the time. I mean, you're always getting new things kind of thrown at you. This isn't a job where you can where it becomes a routine, because it's constantly changing. That's the part about it's exciting. That's the part about that pushes someone that would be that has a passion for art and science, keeps them just beyond their comfort zone, and that's where the real growth happens. That's where the amazing work kind of happens.
Well, Danny, it was a pleasure having you here and answering these questions, and I really appreciate it. And I'm sure what you presented will give people all kinds of insights and just new perspectives on what is going on in that particular career field. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Always.